One of the problems with recruiting for investment banking is not the knowledge or skills you acquire, but the access to talk with real investment bankers to put your best foot forward. Our sponsor, WSO Academy, can provide those connections with 60 head mentors who are finance professionals at top firms like Goldman, Centerview, and JP Morgan. Imagine being able to get on the phone within 24 hours with one of the Academy's 1,300 mentors right before a critical interview. Get on the waitlist for WSO Academy today by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting wallstreetoasis.com/academy. All right. Welcome to Investment Banking Insights. This is the show dedicated to helping you learn the technical and non-technical aspects of investment banking to help you with that recruiting process. My name is Alex Mason. I'm your host, and we're talking about valuation. We're just grinding through these valuation questions. I hope you're really learning a lot in this section. And we're going to talk about some ratios today. Specifically, one ratio that is very common. And we're going to talk about the logic behind why you couldn't use an alternative ratio that looks very similar, but is in fact different. Okay, so the question is, why can't you use equity value to EBITDA instead of enterprise value to EBITDA? Now, we know that enterprise value to EBITDA, that's one of our standard ratios that we definitely want to remember. And if you don't understand it completely, I encourage you to go back to our episode where we discussed multiples several episodes ago, because we went into that in depth. But fundamentally, enterprise value to EBITDA, it's giving us a valuation of our earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization. Sorry, that's a mouthful. But it's giving that to us in relation to the overall enterprise value. And remember, what is enterprise value? It's our formula, our debt, plus our equity, plus our preferred stock, plus our non-controlling interests, minus our cash. So we're looking at the enterprise value as a whole. What is the company worth in terms of how it's valued to all investors, not just equity, but also our debt investors? And how do the earnings relate to that? Now, if we look at something like equity value to EBITDA, this is problematic, because it's essentially comparing apples to oranges. EBITDA is available to all investors, both debt and equity investors, whereas equity value, it's only available to the equity investors. So it just doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't really click. Using equity value is not a capital structure neutral way to look at valuation. Now, what if a company didn't have positive EBITDA yet? Well, we discussed this a little bit in prior episodes, but if you don't have positive EBITDA yet, but you do have a business, that means you have revenue, most likely, right? I mean, how can you have a business without revenue? So you could look at something like an enterprise value to revenue if you don't have positive EBITDA, but let's consider another situation for a moment. When does it make sense to have equity value to revenue? Equity value specifically related to revenue. Well, some businesses might have large cash balances, and we know from the enterprise value formula that sometimes if a business has a large cash balance, remember we're subtracting out the cash, that could give you a negative enterprise value. So equity value might be more appropriate in that case. Now, just to paint the picture for you, let's say that we have a company that makes apple trees, and we have an orchard, and we have a bunch of assets, we have no debt, and then we have this huge cash balance. If we subtract out the cash balance from the other components of enterprise value, that gives us a negative value for our enterprise. But we all know that this business has real value, right? So we'd have to look at something like an equity value, which would not subtract out cash. So that's when equity value to revenue could be useful. But remember, our most common metric, at least the one that I've seen so far, is going to be enterprise value to EBITDA. And then you could also look at equity value to revenue in some cases. But remember, you would never use equity value to EBITDA because you're comparing apples to oranges. All right, that's what I got for you today. Next time, we're going to be talking about another valuation method that we touched on a little bit a few episodes ago, liquidation value. We're going to be delving into liquidation value a little bit more. Okay, I'll see you on the next one. This has been Investment Banking Insights. My name is Alex Mason, and I'm your host. I'll see you there.